The playoffs are here, and you can predict the action all the way to the finals with FanDuel Predicts. Predict the spread, the total points, and even the game-winning moments that make the playoffs. Sign up and get a $25 bonus with FanDuel Predicts.
Offered by FanDuel Prediction Markets, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant. 18 plus bonus is non-withdrawable and expires 7 days after receipt. Trading derivatives involves significant risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Manage your activity with their consumer protection tools. Restrictions apply. See terms at FanDuel.com/predicts/bonus-offer-terms.
Katz and Cosby, entertaining and informative
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Professor Dershowitz, are you on?
I'm on, always listening to you.
Thank you. I got Congressman Jeff Van Drew on from New Jersey, and we're talking about his governor is staging rallies in front of the of murderers and the ICE facility,
and wants to close it.
Look, New Jersey is lucky. It has a couple of very, very, very good congressmen, but boy, does it have some bums in office as well. One in Congress and others as well, a couple in the Senate. New Jersey is catching New York-itis a little bit, and also New England-itis. If for example, if Collins is defeated, there will not be a single Republican in the entire Congress from all of New England, and it's beginning to spread to New York and New Jersey. So let's hope we can keep that in check and keep Congress balanced, at least in some way.
So, Professor Dershowitz, what's the legal parameters? Because she's claiming, the governor of New Jersey, and we still have the congressman with us, Jeff Van Drew, that the reason is that they're not getting appropriate food, appropriate conditions. Department of Homeland Security says that's hogwash. That's not true. And she says she wants to close it. Is there any justification to actually close it?
No, and would she be making the same arguments if they were people of a different political perspective? Does she really care about their human rights and their food, or does she care about their political ideology? That's the real question. No, I don't think there's a basis for, there's no moral basis for what she's doing, and legal bases we're not so clear about. The law has become so partisan these days, it's very hard to predict. I used to be in the business of predicting outcomes of judicial decisions. Now all I need to know is the name of the judge, generally, and I can predict the outcome no matter what the case is about.
Understood. Well, Congressman Jeff Van Drew, thank you. I hope we got an answer, and thank you for coming on, Jeff.
It is my pleasure, and I hope there's a day that this isn't going on, because the last thing I'll say is just think about those families that watch this and hear this. They have to listen to this, how badly they feel and how betrayed they feel. Nobody cares about the victim. Yeah. It's unbelievable. So thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, thank you, Congressman, and stay with us, Professor Dershowitz. Thank you, Congressman, so much.
Sure, and this kind of partisanship applies all over. Look at what's going on in my old hometown of Brooklyn, where these idiots are refusing to sell Israeli products. The co-op in Park Slope, they're refusing to sell Israeli products to people who want to buy them. And they're selling Cuban products and Chinese products and Russian products and Iranian products, you name it. But a product to be sold from a Jewish state, even if somebody wants to eat Israeli hummus, the people out there don't want them to do it. Everything has become partisan. If I were a member of the co-op in Brooklyn, I'd be suing the board. I'd be suing anybody who tries to have any kind of a boycott, because that's not the role of a co-op. The role of a co-op is to sell food at a somewhat cheaper price, not to pick and choose the politics of who can buy what from who. And so, the world's going nuts. And
it is.
Yeah.
Professor Dershowitz, I want to ask you one quick question. You brought up sort of the where things are going with the Senate and the Susan Collins race. You look at Graham Plattner. Just a few hours ago, we were talking about this. You've got a Jewish American, Jake Auchincloss, Democrat of your state, Massachusetts, who came out finally and said that the Nazi tattoo is disqualifying. So now I think on record it's Fetterman and him. And you got a guy who said the most vile, horrible things about women, about veterans, about Jews. I mean, the list goes on and on. Police, he bashed. And now there's only 2 Democrats of courage.
And you know, it's amazing. He's very good. He's a very, very good member of Congress, unlike some of the other members from my old state of Massachusetts, many of whom are in the squad now. But he's very good. And, of course, Fetterman is very good. But the Democrats as a whole, particularly you get people like Schumer, who are or Warren or Murphy, and they are clinging to these Nazis and saying, you know, as long as we can unseat Collins, who's a moderate, serious, you know, multi-term Republican who often votes against the Republicans, but if there's a Democrat, no matter, he can have swastikas, he can say whatever he wants to say, he can support the guy from Michigan or the woman from Texas. It doesn't matter. We don't care. And, you know, that's what got Hitler elected in 1932. People didn't care. People voted for him because he said he would help the economy. Liz Warren would have campaigned for Adolf Hitler in 1932 if he wanted a minimum wage. That's her one issue. She doesn't care what somebody thinks about the Jews or what somebody thinks about other issues. So, you know, it's outrageous that Democrats are doing this, which is why me and so many other people are leaving the Democratic Party. We cannot abide being in a party that not only tolerates but nominates people like that.
Yeah, it is shocking.
We do have a problem. I mean, history repeats itself. I hope it doesn't repeat itself like that.
Yeah, no, it won't repeat itself only because we have a strong country called Israel, which would never allow it to happen. We have strong people like you, all of whom are on this show, who are willing to speak out. That didn't happen in Nazi Germany. People were afraid. People were cowed. So we're not going to see a repetition. But, boy, we are seeing a lot of things that are similar, particularly at universities. Remember, in 1932, it was the universities where Nazism really got its start. Munich and Heidelberg and Berlin, where Stalin got his start at universities, where Castro got his start at universities. So don't be surprised if these university students, many of them, become so radical and so intolerant that they're willing to accept what happened in 1932. I don't think it's going to happen, but we have to be on our guard.
Yeah, I pray not. Wow. Judge Weinberg.
So, Professor Dershowitz, good to talk to you again. The state legislature in New York just passed through both houses, going to the Governor Hochul's desk for signature, a bill which would ban all cooperation with ICE and ban ICE and other law enforcement officials from wearing masks, empowering the state attorney general to prosecute them and to have penalties against them. So what do you think the approach should be for the people here in New York who oppose that kind of ridiculous legislation in terms of stopping the enforcement of that law?
Well, take it to court right away. It's unconstitutional under the Supremacy Clause. You know, you can passively refuse to cooperate with certain aspects of federal law enforcement, but you can't pass a statute. Just think if this were Alabama in 1952, the Alabama legislature passed the same statute saying we won't cooperate with integration, we won't cooperate with Brown versus Board of Education, we won't cooperate with efforts by federal government to enforce the Constitution, the equal protection. Everybody would be outraged. This is the same thing when it comes to the Supremacy Clause. Supremacy Clause, you know, the great debates that occurred in 88, 89, 90 over the Constitution and the Bill of Rights were all about that. And they ultimately adopted the Virginia Plan, drafted by Madison, which said that the federal government is what controls when there's a dispute between the federal and the state, and it's within the authority of the federal government. And, of course, immigration is within the authority of the federal government. So on our 250th anniversary, this legislature is going to celebrate it by undoing the Constitutional Convention that occurred almost 250 years ago in the name of trying to avoid Trump's policies on immigration. That's it. And clearly the courts would strike it down. Ultimately, the Supreme Court would clearly strike down legislation that mandates non-cooperation with the federal government.
It's talking about the Supreme Court. What did they knock down? Was it a local case in Alabama?
Oh, yeah, this is interesting. Did you see the redistricting? The Republicans were trying to redraw the line, and a federal judge knocked it down, saying that it was tainted, that it wasn't appropriate.
Because it was race-based.
Yes.
They said because it was race-based.
Exactly.
The courts are wrong about that. This is not race-based. This is politics-based. Now, race and politics sometimes come together. I mean, people of a certain race are more likely to support a particular party than people of another race. But the reason that the legislature does this is not because they're discriminating against any race. They're trying to get political advantage. And the courts have a very hard time separating out politics from race, and they make the wrong decisions. This one will be reversed.
Before we let you go, Hassan Piker, I had to ask you about this, Professor Dershowitz. He is now being subpoenaed, and this is interesting. He went to Cuba, and he said he went for a humanitarian mission, but then he went over there and was bashing America and bashing the Trump administration's policies while in Cuba. And he said, I didn't pay for the trip. He said a guy named Neville Roy Singham paid through the trip through Code Pink. So is this going to open the door maybe to some of these groups that are money somehow goes from, who knows, maybe the Chinese government or somewhere to Roy Singham, to a nonprofit, and then to people who hate America?
Let's remember, Code Pink is a neo-fascist Chinese Communist Party front. There's nothing good about Code Pink at all. Everything they do is wrong from top to bottom. And if they're funding anything, you know it's anti-American. You know it's in the interest of the Chinese Communist Party. And you know that if Code Pink ever got any kind of power, what they would do to America. So anything that exposes the finances of Code Pink is a good thing for America.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. Well, Professor Dershowitz, boy, a lot to talk with you. We always love having you on.
Who do you think wins tonight in Texas, Professor?
Oh, I can't predict Texas.
We're taking bets.
Texas.
5 cents apiece.
Texas Hold'em.
I can't make a prediction. I just don't know enough. I like to say what I know something about, and I know something about law, but I don't know anything about Texas politics except that I'm very, very proud of having taught Ted Cruz from the day he walked into Harvard Law School.
I'm glad somebody taught him. I'm glad.
You taught him well.